Hi everyone, and thanks for tuning in to my weekly video message. After a number of weeks of discussing the wisdom of Musar, the ancient Jewish practice of cultivating positive midot or character traits, I want to shift focus, and I want to spend the next 2 weeks talking about Purim, which we'll celebrate next week, and the wisdom Purim has to offer us for these times. Now on Purim, we read the book of Esther, which tells the story of how Esther and Mordecai foil the plot of the evil Haman to destroy the Jewish people. And one of the things that makes the book of Esther so interesting and unusual is that it's our only book in the Tanakh, our only book in the Hebrew Bible that does not mention God. God is seemingly absent from the story and seemingly has no role in the triumph of the Jewish people over the forces of xenophobia and hatred. The sages of the Talmud offer a really interesting teaching here, and they teach that the book of Esther is a story of divine hiddenness. Where does the name Esther come from, they ask? It's related to the curse in Deuteronomy, Haster Astir Panai. I, God, will surely hide my face from you. For the sages of the Talmud, the story of Purim is a story of divine hiddenness, of God turning God's face away from us in our times of trouble. Now, you might imagine our tradition really wrestling with this. How could God be absent when the Jewish people are in such danger? How could God be absent when there's such a need to triumph over evil? Is the lesson really that we're on our own? Now, this might be too simple of a read to this story, and I really appreciate the ways that these same rabbis of the Talmudic era do find God's presence in the story in powerful ways. In another part of the Talmud, the rabbis teach that when Esther went to see the king to advocate for the Jewish people, which was a very risky thing to do, it could have cost her her life, that 3 ministering angels of God accompanied her. One raised up her neck so that instead of being bowed low in fear, she stood upright with strength and confidence to demand what was right. Another angel strung a cord of kindness around her, like a necklace, and elevated her charm and beauty before the king. And another stretched out the king's scepter, which meant that Esther could speak before the king. What I so appreciate about this teaching is that it reminds us where God was in the Purim story and where God is with us now. We too might be feeling like God is absent, that God is hiding God's face from us in the midst of so much cruelty and upheaval in this distressing time. But God is with us, and God is with us every time we do something to fight back. Every time we do something to fight back against the forces of cruelty and xenophobia and greed and hatred, every time we speak out, every time we do an act of care for someone experiencing harm, every time we call our representatives, every time we give money to an organization doing good work, every time we show up for an action, this is where God is present in this time. This is where we will see God's face shining before us. Just as the 3 ministering angels were with Esther, helping her succeed, helping her be strong, and helping her be defiant against the forces of oppression and cruelty, and ultimately triumphing. So too is God with us as we try to do exactly what Esther did in her own time. With every action we take that insists on a world of justice, on a world of compassion and human dignity, we can come to feel God's presence. We can come to experience and see the face of God in our world. With that, I want to invite each of us to reflect this week. In what ways, if at all, have you felt God's presence or absence in these tumultuous times? And how might taking action for justice, compassion, and human dignity reveal God's face to us and to our world? As usual, I look forward to hearing your responses to these questions. You can reach me at rabbi@bethtorah.org. I look forward to hearing what's on your heart and your mind.